Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where property meets purpose. I'm Talia Hugh.
And I'm Megan Rovers. Together we're here to unpack the real stories behind the people shaping the property industry. From bold first steps to career-defining moments and the life lessons they've built along the way.
If you're passionate about property, curious about the human side of success, or just looking to build something meaningful, you're in the right place.
So let's unpack it. Welcome to Built for This.
Welcome, Tara. Thank you for joining Built for This today. So good to meet you.
You guys too. Thank you. I'm really excited.
No, pleasure.
We would love to kick off this episode hearing about where everything kind of kicked off for you. I know that for a lot of people, property, obviously you've lived in a house, etc. But where did your career in property start and how did that all start for you?
I finished high school in 2002, and during that year of year 12, I wasn't quite sure what my initial plans were after finishing school. I had quite a few friends wanting to move to Brisbane, go to uni. So I grew up in Maryborough, Queensland. And given I wasn't confident with knowing the exact plan of attack that I wanted to take, I wasn't about to just go do a uni degree for fun and put that pressure on my parents. So I thought, well, I'll get a job and work out what the plans are after that. And through my work experience, I did a week with TESS, which is a training employment support service. And the lady who was the manager there had 2 investment properties with the business where I secured my first real estate job. So that's pretty much how it started. They wanted to try and find a position for me there, which they didn't. So she recommended me to that property management business, and the rest is history.
Amazing. And for you, was it love at first sight? Did you just know, I guess what made you know, you were quite young when you in property, what made you think that, this is it, this is something that I'm going to devote my career and my life to?
I wouldn't say it was love at first sight. I loved having an income, even though back then your weekly wage was, I'm pretty sure it was like $295 or $298 a week, which was a lot of money back then. And I started in a reception role. I did my traineeship over a 12-month period, and then was asked if I would like to be a property manager, and I received a $40 per week increase in my wage to be a property manager, which people would hear that now and go, oh gosh, I don't know, but want to be a property manager for that. But that was huge to me back then. I thought, wow, that'll pay for my drinks on the weekends. So I thought that was a great plan and just kind of took off in that space. I was between refereeing as well. So I was doing a bit of travel refereeing soccer, and had ambitions to get to the FIFA level with that. So I did kind of get to a point in my early 20s where I had to make that decision as to if I was going to stay and continue my real estate career in property management or move to Brisbane and explore more of the opportunity of being in a city base, which would give me the chances that I needed to become a World Cup FIFA referee. But I decided to not go down that path, and had an amazing experience over that time, but that's another whole podcast. And then went down the real estate path, bought my first property at 21, and just started to feel really settled in that space. I liked the idea of the flexibility, the opportunities that the industry gives, that not one day is the same. That's never fazed me at all, I think. So I wouldn't say it was love at first sight. I think it was a love that has blossomed and developed over the last 23 years.
Love that. And we know that, property management and BDM, which you then, transitioned to at a later stage. How was, where did the BDM come about? How did you sort of progress into that position?
Yeah. So the first business that I had worked in, I was with them for 3 years, and then I was presented an opportunity that I just couldn't refuse. And that was kind of where the next stage of my growth in the property management space took off, and the introduction to BDM. So the principal of mine at the time, Jade, that was a company called YB Prestige Properties. We attended a conference event on the Gold Coast, which they still run now, through the PPM group. They started really kicking off their conference space then. And that particular afternoon, the training was completely based on rent roll growth and this idea of a business development manager. And at the time, I was a portfolio manager in that business. And Jade said straight away, this is something you'd be amazing at. I knew I knew from the training it was something that I really wanted to do. So we then come back with a heap of ideas, couldn't stop talking from the Gold Coast back to the Maryborough Harvey Bay area, which is about a 4.5 hour drive, just talked about all these different things and what we took from the conference. And then we continued to find the right team members to take over my role in the business. And then I went full into the business development space there for the agency, and it just took off. Once you focus on BDM or rent roll growth within your business and you have a complete understanding and focus of what you're wanting to achieve, there's nothing stopping you.
Obviously, Jay, I guess, saw something in you that day as well, and from those discussions, and a goal to be a FIFA soccer umpire. It sounds like you're quite ambitious and competitive in nature. Do you think there's certain personality traits that make you who you are now a business owner? Do you think that they are personality traits that can be, well, not even personality traits that can be learned, or do you think you're intrinsically born to be BDM, to be a business owner, and to be a good property manager? I'm interested to hear what you think.
Yeah. I think what Jade saw in me was that I had the right attitude and the interest to just want more. I don't actually think that I had those skill sets straight away. I think that that was something that I strengthened over time. And for any business owners out there, and, you know, we're not moving forward to the active agent story yet, but when I am recruiting and employing members of my team, I really try to focus on that, because if they have the right attitude, you can't train that, you can't make that happen. It is something that's embedded with them, and it's generally how they've been brought up or what they've been exposed to as they've stepped into, you know, growing up as a child and going through their schooling career, and then going into you know, the workspace and what they've experienced with previous employers and all those different things. It's all really relevant and very important. So I think if anybody really wanted to, they could be an amazing BDM. I don't think that there's just, this is, you know, who you are and you're born this way. I actually think that anybody can, because I've seen in my team now strengths come out in them that they didn't know that they had. So attitude, definitely. And I'd spent quite a few years with Jade beforehand. So I'm assuming that she certainly saw that in me. And that's obviously now stemmed into what she was able to achieve with that business during that time.
Being a business owner of a portfolio and a property management department now, and I think it's probably widespread across the industry. And I know that we're in different states. In Victoria, I think there's probably a bit of a mass exodus of property managers during and after the COVID period. But you touched on recruitment there when you are looking to recruit someone. What do you think separates a really high-performing BDM from a BDM who is doing their role in a business? And what do you look for when you are recruiting? You said attitude's one thing, but I guess, is there any lessons learned there that you think, well, if I had have known that 10 years ago, it would have made my life a lot easier?
I think an interview is a really interesting process, because some of the best people that I've had the opportunity to work with, I wouldn't say that they've been amazing in the interview process. So it is really a testing ground that you are trying to, you know, you could have multiple applications you're working with, and sometimes you don't, and that's the reality of where we are now. But I think when it comes to the stage of when they're within your team, it's about making sure that you are very clear on the expectations of what is expected of them, and that they're delivering that within that first 3 months, and you have that probationary period in place. Because if they can't deliver within that first 3 months, then it's unlikely that's going to change beyond that. If they're choosing to not do the prospecting calls, if they're choosing not to create those opportunities and networking and getting their name out there, as we know in BDM, it's not about who you know, it's who knows you. And that might not be easy to have that, you know, fully established in the first 3 months. But if it's presented that you are doing all the steps to be able to get there, going, oh, I'm trying really hard, but nothing's happening, but you're not actually doing the steps, that's where it all starts to fall apart. So most people that are applying for a BDM role interview exceptionally well, because it's something that they have either done before, or they're generally sales-based, hyper energetic people. And sometimes I find too that people that sometimes transition to that role without realizing are a great opportunity, because it's a natural skill that they haven't appreciated that they do have, but you get the opportunity to bring it out in them. So I think it can go one or two ways. I've seen when I was training in the BDM Academy space and going into businesses, I've seen some amazing BDMs that have been initially full-time property managers that have gone into that space and been extremely successful because their attention to detail has been really valuable. And then I've seen other BDMs that have always been sales-based BDM, but if they don't have that assistant working with them, it all falls apart because they're not great with the attention to detail and the process that is required to get it to that next stage of handing over to a property manager. So being accountable and somebody being in charge of the operation of that individual is vital in the process. I love to have the magic potion to know the exact way to get it right in the interview. But for me, it's always been attitude. That's just the thing I've looked for. Yeah.
Sure. And you touched on as well I guess, the BDMs that come through from property management, and I'm sure there's others that, of course, haven't because they've got that sales ability naturally.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is for a BDM to, I guess, have the experience of property management for the dynamic between BDMs and property managers within a business?
Yeah. When I was a BDM at Prestige Properties, not so much. Legislation has evolved so much, so much now. And the questions that we get asked from investors are completely different to what I was asked 15 years ago. So if you'd asked me it then, I would have said, you know what, you can probably wing it and make your way through it. They want to know and have confidence that you're going to look after the property and they don't have to think about it. That type of investor isn't necessarily the same now. And hence, if we go into the conversation of technology and software at some point, they're wanting to have that transparency. They're wanting to be able to see everything. They're wanting to be able to know. So when they go in and they can see stuff, you have to be able to answer those questions. And if you're a BDM that doesn't understand, in Queensland in particular, we've had legislation change around that you can't increase rent within a 12-month period. It has to be a clear 12 months of the same rent. If you don't have the ability to explain that to an investor when you're signing up the business and you say, oh yeah, the property manager will handle that, you're not going to win the business. They're expecting that who they talk to knows exactly what is going on. So as the BDM, you have to have the same level of knowledge, I believe, in the world that we're in now. And I would think that that's relevant across every state in Queensland, to be honest. And it keeps changing. So the expectation of us knowing everything has become much more precious and a higher commodity, I feel, when owners are selecting an agent to manage their investment.
I think consumers are so much more educated now. There's so much more out there that they can educate themselves. So they're coming to the table with maybe 80% more knowledge than what they would have had maybe 10, 15 years ago, because it would be kind of kept behind closed doors. You had your secret book of, those things that we do that you know that we did. Whereas now it's like, you can just pretty much ask ChatGPT, what are 10 questions I should ask my BDM, or tell me 10 facts about this BDM. And then it does turn into that little bit of an interview process. So I'm not surprised you said before that BDMs usually interview well, because their job is essentially interviews now every single day to win business. At some point in your career, you've moved from being an employee as a BDM to being a business owner.
Yeah.
That's obviously a big transition in itself. Can you explore further for us what that was like for you and how that kind of came about?
So my growth process with that was Jade sold the business. So we grew it up to, I'm going to say it was 648 properties. I could have that. I might not be bang on, but it was definitely over the 600 mark. It's been some time now. And when I started with her, it was in the 200 space. So really exceptional growth over that time. And then I went into the training space. So that was actually my first opportunity as a business owner and operating for myself. I had just myself in the beginning. Training sessions were done online through Skype, and then it went to Zoom and all those different things. So in the BDM Academy space, I did that for 6 years full time, and then Active Agent started just after that. So then I kicked off a property manager business from scratch, which was Active Agents. And then that was just myself. And then I've evolved now with a team. So with the BDM Academy, I had other trainers and stuff I'd work with, but this has been more people management this time, aside from just client management, which I think many business owners that are out there listening to this podcast can appreciate is a different way of how you approach things when you're working in people managing your staff versus people managing your clients.
What are some of those lessons you've learned? Because we love this part, and that's probably the question
Yeah.
that a loaded question to a certain degree, because I think when people go from being an employee to being a business owner, and we see it typically in the real estate industry, especially in the sales side, where you're an exceptional salesperson and then all of a sudden you put the director hat, and what does that actually mean, and how are those skill sets different? So lessons learned from that space and people management is, we'd love to hear any kind of quick lessons that you learned when you stepped into that role as people manager, rather than just managing other clients, like you said.
Yes, yeah. I think what would be some lessons? Probably around systems. So when we released Active Agents, the concept and idea was the fact that the area was lacking the opportunity to attract people that are outside of Harvey Bay to be able to comfortably secure a rental property. That was the main vision of what I wanted to be able to fix as a problem in our area. We're a very transient area. So, being able to apply for a property without viewing it was just non-existent in the area, and everyone was expecting a paper-based application that had to be done. And why I share that part to talk about things that I wish I had done differently is when I first started that, I did all the, online stuff and everything really well on that aspect of the running of the process with the clients and the business. But I didn't jump into the Trello space then straight away, which I probably should have in the checklist process. So when I adapted that first team member and I was kind of a step behind, I was building them with her. And that was fine too, but I probably could have been a bit smarter and going, have Trello open and start putting those steps in place across the processes sooner, because it probably did slow us down a little bit, needing to take that time to allow to delegate comfortably. And I think anyone that starts from the starting from 0 properties through to 100 properties or 200 properties or even 300 properties, when you're adding on that next team member, you've got to make sure that you are having the processes in place to comfortably delegate. And if you don't have those processes in place to comfortably delegate, it's very difficult to do it with confidence. So that's probably something that I wish I had done sooner from the 0 properties up. And I probably wish I had a remote professional sooner, a VA. I thought about that we're 6 years in now. I thought about that at the 3-year mark. And I could have done that a bit sooner. But it's always that thing of, was the business quite ready at the time? And she's amazing and I love her. And she, Alma does so much within the business on an administrative side. So it is really handy having an RP in place. So if you don't have one, just do it. Obviously, make sure that you're set up and geared and ready for it. But they're 2 things I probably wish I had done sooner. But on an aspect, I guess, of when I've had staff changes, I had 4 staff changes last year, which for a small business of up to 7 staff, that's a lot, all for different reasons. And I think that I just always try to focus on what are some of the lessons that I've gained and what have I found that has been really beneficial from that experience with them. What have I been able to learn from that experience from them as an individual? What have they brought to the business that's been really helpful? And just try to remove yourself from the fact that you've spent all this time training them and then they're going.
Retention is very topical again, as is recruitment, because you can recruit property managers, but if you're not retaining property managers, then it's just like recruiting properties and not retaining properties. You could list 30 and lose 30 in the same month. What are some, I guess, retention? You said you learned some lessons potentially, last year times 4. What are some retention lessons or some retention things that you've put in place that you feel have changed the game for you? Maybe they're 1%ers, maybe they're big things that have really worked.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't have to give away all your trade secrets to your competitors.
No, and look, I think part of the reason too, which it's one of the hardest things that you have to do as a business owner, but if you don't do it, it just drags out, is asking those tough questions to your team really early on and putting that pressure on them. Is this really the industry for you? And we get too scared to ask that question because we don't want them to leave. But in turn, when I've had those conversations and we've had our performance review time, or we've been out in the car together talking, it's ultimately led them to believe and understand, well, actually, I don't know if property management's for me, because I know what I want to achieve in the business. I know what I want it to look like. I know how I want it to feel. I know how I want the experience to be for those who are a part of this journey of where Active Agents is going. And I think we have to be, in some cases, really brutal with that. Having flexibility is important too, but really clear. You know, the two property managers that I have now that have been the longest with me, I've got them both going to training in Brisbane next month, where they're on a 2-day course, which is a $1,500 a head course each. So it's not something that you want to take the risk and the next month the team member goes, and they could still go at some point. There's no guarantee. We can't guarantee that, but they've demonstrated that they are invested, they've had that time here. And I've been really forward in asking those clear questions. Are you enjoying it? Is this, you know, are you getting that enjoyment? Are you going home at night carrying the burden or the stress or the negativity that's coming in from sometimes where we're having those client experiences? So those uncomfortable questions that you ask your staff, yes, it puts the idea in their mind, and they're either going to stay or they're going to go. And if I feel that the ones that haven't stayed, and some have left because their partners have relocated for work, so you can't change that. Others have left because Harvey Bay is just not the place for them, and that's okay too. And they've relocated. And some have left because the industry just wasn't for them. They've come and tried it out and they're just not loving it. They're not getting that same feeling. They're watching me and going, I don't seem to have the same feeling as Tara. And it sucks. It sucks that we had to do that last year 4 times. But if I didn't do it and I dragged it out, I wouldn't have the people here now that I have, and the people coming through that we have over this month and next month, that are just making the business so great and amazing.
I feel a little bit of pressure from clients. There's kind of this perception, if a property manager leaves, there's something wrong with the business, and then the client, they kind of question what's going on. But as you said, we have team members leaving for almost all those reasons and more. That it's like, well, people leave businesses for all types of reasons, and I feel the heat quite a bit in the real estate industry for that. That you have to really explain yourself, where that person go and why. And I guess being a service-based business, it is, it's change, and completely appreciate this change. Do you feel that as well? Do you feel that, you know, based essentially some other businesses experience you've got, that you do feel that change does impact?
I think what has worked really well for us is because, as the principal, my passion is completely property management. They've known that regardless if they need to, you know, talk to me about something specifically, whether it is a matter that they've got an issue with that person, or they are concerned with that changeover, that they've been able to come to me. And I've been really open and honest with them. I think sometimes we worry about trying to fluff it up to make it look pretty and dance around the topic. A lot of these clients that we're working with are likely to own businesses themselves, or they're working in high pressure spaces where they're seeing that churn of other team members all the time as well. So they're not naive. They're not silly. They're understanding that it's happening everywhere, not just in the property management space and real estate. I think just don't dance around the conversation. And one in particular, team member that has recently changed is actually my sister, was working in the business, and for her, she was she did an amazing job at what she was doing, but property management just isn't for her. I joke around and tell her she's a straighty 180, and, you know, has to dot her I's and cross her T's, and that she sometimes will struggle with having a day that just doesn't go to plan. But her experience has been in government background, and there was an opportunity that come up, and for her it was about waiting for that next opportunity that was going to be right for her to transition and to step into. And there were quite a few clients that said to me, what happened to Kelly? And I was just really honest and said, you know, she had been in this space prior to coming to Active Agents, and an opportunity has come up for her to go back into that type of work again in a government role. And I want her to be able to do that. That's where she needs to be, and that's where she's going to get the greatest enjoyment. So I'm really grateful for the time that she's had here with us. And just being genuine and honest. I think if you try to say, oh, well, they just left and they're no longer here, and here's your property manager now, you just try to fluff all over it. You don't have to tell them everything. And even if it's not been the best experience, I've had situations where something has gone wrong in the portfolio, and as an example, there was a trade booked in for a job that they shouldn't have been, and they picked the wrong property in that street. So the owners ended up getting a free termite inspection and pest treatment done, because it's a failure in our business that they picked the wrong property. They were instructed to pick another property. So we're responsible as the business. And I've said, look, we'll pay for that because that shouldn't have happened. And taking ownership of it, not going, oh, well, this is done now, you just have to pay for it to the client and cop it on the chin. So I think that type of conversation, saying, look, we've seen this and recognise it, we're really sorry. You've just got to be really honest and forward. And fortunately for that owner, it was a good thing that they did have it happen, because they needed to improve their termite barrier. So, but at the same time, completely our responsibility, completely our error. And you just got to be really honest with that.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned 3 words there that I think when people think of the real estate industry, they may not jump out as words that they describe real estate agents. We can say that because they're real estate agents, but you said genuine, honesty, and transparency.
Yeah.
With tech, AI, everything that's kind of happening in the space, in the property management space, with systems and processes, how do you see the game changing? So the perception of the industry, maybe not those 3 words. How do you think those AI, tech, etc., will change the game in the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? And what are you already seeing in that space?
Yeah. Look, owners expect to have transparency now to see and know what's going on, because ultimately we've just never had trust in the real estate space. That's not been something that has even been there when I started back in 2002. And over time, you gain that trust from your clients. And I have plenty of clients that barely ever log into the platform and have no idea what's going on. I have to chase them up all the time to get answers on different things. But at the end of the day, they expect that. They are wanting that to happen. So within the software that we're using now, they can log in and see when the rent review's due. They know when the next routine inspection's coming up. They are getting access to that experience if they choose to go with our agency. And not every agent uses the same property management software out there. As we know, there's all different types of platforms that they can use. So for our agency, and that's what I'm talking about, isn't it? I just want to make sure I was right. What we're doing differently, is we use Managed Apps. So that's our property management platform that we use for our software. And you can see absolutely everything in it. You can download your statements. You've got access to download everything. In the task space, you can see it all. And then you're getting instant payments as well. So payments are processing as the tenants paying rent, and that's going straight through to the owner. You're not at the mercy of a trust account waiting for mid-month or end of month. You're not at the risk of that too, of things that can go wrong in trust accounts, as we've seen in the media as well. So those things I think are really important. One of our KPIs is getting the portfolios down to 0 rent arrears, and we've done that. We're not shy about, I think we've got about nearly 400 properties now. Last check, it was at 386, and we've got more stock coming in over the next couple of weeks. And the girls have had days, we've split it up as the Eastern and Western pod, and they compete against each other. And there's been days in their portfolios where they get 0 rent arrears, and that's unheard of. So, those things I explained to the team, getting that is such a huge benefit and selling point for us when we're talking to our investors. Not only do you have that transparency, but because of the strength of the software, it makes it easy for us to put that pressure on and have those conversations with the tenant about their rent, because when they pay rent, it processes straight away. There's no reason why that rent shouldn't be here. There's not this conversation of, oh, it's land in the trust account or we're waiting for it to process. It's there. It's the same if you're shopping online and buying a product. So that's been really powerful in maximising on that. Bringing in virtual tours, we did that from day one, and it wasn't happening in the rental space here in the area. And that was a blessing in disguise, because 9 months in, COVID happened, and made it so much easier to rent properties as that experience kicked off for everybody, as we know. online applications. We've obviously got both available because in Queensland you're required to also have the option of the paper application, the PDF version. So we do have that there as well. And we're utilising AI within our business. I have different GPTs set up that the girls know that they can use to have that assistance and confidence that they don't feel like they have to bring the question to me straight away. They can prepare what they plan to say. If it's a bigger conversation, they think, geez, I really want to put some, juice and energy into this so that I'm putting back a constructive response to the client. They can prepare all that by utilizing what we've built in AI. And then with confidence, we can talk about it together. And they're generally 95% bang on with the responses. So you have to be prepared if you're wanting to delegate and let those areas of responsibility that maybe as a business owner you're holding on to, let them go. You've got to have the support there for them to be able to feel confident. Because when I was in their positions in my first couple of years into property management, it was easier to wing legislation because everything was so great. You were almost making it up as you went along. And if you could sell what you wanted to present to the tenant or landlord, they'd just believe you because legislation was never clear enough. There's still frustrations for everyone with legislation across the country, but it's so much clearer now and more defined than what we ever had when I first started.
So in terms of AI, it's really using it to your advantage that you think is to the industry. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
Absolutely.
like a simple example to the point is Georgie and our team, super fast typer. I don't think that makes or breaks a property manager, but she is like that GIF that you see where the cat's typing really quickly. She's amazing. Like I've never seen someone type so fast as her. And then for Talia and myself and the team, and Jen, who's just joined our team, it's not an area that's a strong skill set of ours, right? So one of my goals this year has been to do more voice to text, to have my emails pre-written so that I'm not at the mercy of typing all day consistently. And what I find, it builds up, as we know, for people like you guys might be the same or not with typing, it builds up all the tension in your neck and shoulders, and you just feel like you're leaving in the day and you're just really uncomfortable. So now I've got it set up with ChatGTP that I can talk to it and say, this is the message that I want to write. I'm out doing a ton of different jobs, whatever it might be. I'm going to an appraisal or assisting with some advertising photos. I'm putting all those notes back in. When I come back, I'm just shooting that all off and it's all pre-written for me. And when I'm talking into my phone and doing it, I would say it's 95% bang on. If you build them to talk in your persona, and I'm not here to be the preacher of AI, but if you build it in a way to talk in your persona and just have a go, you can't break it. Is probably the thing that I'm saying. I definitely say invest in the paid version. We have the paid version. I've got my own separate account, and then the team have their own separate account that they log into as well. And I've built extra, legislation support and that type of thing for them in there, which has been really helpful. But utilising in a way that suits you and your personality, and then making sure as a whole as a business that you're doing.
Love to touch on family life if you're open to that. And I think being, as a business owner, you seem quite active within your business as well. How do you find managing the family life? You've got 2 daughters, is that right?
2 daughters, yeah. Yeah, so 2 daughters, Isabel and Sienna. So they'll be turning 11 and 9 this year. They have their own interests. Sienna is really enjoying gymnastics, and Isabel's gotten into netball. So like most families where you think and you started off that you put them in the same sports, even if you have 2 boys or 2 girls, it changes. They know what they want to do and they do their own thing. My husband works in active agents as well. His background prior to joining our team was in financial planning. So we had a financial planning business as well, which recently sold and stepped out of that space, and he's now a sales agent at active agents. That's another interesting step on its own for family life and dynamic. I don't think we've mastered that yet. I think it's a work in progress as to how we communicate in the business and how we communicate at home. I don't ever think there's a perfect answer as to what that's going to look like. I think you just keep trialling and open conversation and hoping that you can find the solutions that are going to work best for your relationship, and adapting both, especially in the essence, not just the male-female ratio of me being the principal and then Shane being in the sales role, we keep even playing ground there of the expectations of how we want, the business and everything to grow and what we see. But I think one thing I always have to be careful of is the fact that because I have had, it's been my entire working career property management, I sometimes have to take a step back when he suggests different ideas and I go, that's ridiculous. It wouldn't work. You wouldn't know because you've been in financial planning. So I do have to hold back on that sometimes. And so anyone that is in that dynamic in their business, I would raise caution to think about that, because anyone can bring in a good idea. Try not to be so harsh on your partner if you're working with them. And he'll probably listen to this later and be like, yes, that's exactly what you should do. But it's a learning curve. And then with the kids, my parents purchased the house behind ours during COVID. So we have a gate that goes between both properties, and extremely handy. Growing up, my dad was a full-time plumber with the Fraser Coast Regional Council, and my mum, during my schooling life, was a full-time mum at home. And then as my younger sister started going through high school and finishing up, she then got involved with the high school canteen, and then became the canteen coordinator, and that was her step into employment. But her goal in life was to be a full-time mum, and I think that's an amazing blessing that she got to have that the way that she wanted to. That has not been my goal in life. We're two different types of we've had two different types of parenting styles, but I'm so grateful that she and my dad live so close, because she has just the two granddaughters at this point. We'll see what my brother and sister decide to do, but she absolutely loves them, and she was meant to be a mum, meant to be a nana, and they are very spoilt, so they do not go without, that's for sure.
You've got maybe one thing that you're working on for yourself at the moment, dynamic between husband and wife and colleagues. What's one thing that you wish that leaders would stop doing? Well, if we could pull it into the real estate industry, I guess some examples there, or just one thing in general that you've read about, seen, you've been experienced it as a consumer of a different business. Just one thing that you feel like leaders should stop doing.
I think this is heading down the right path. I think leaders should stop tolerating poor behaviour from our clients. I feel as an industry, we accept, and that could be behaviour on the essence of aggressive, erratic, unnecessary abuse to our staff as well. What I found really interesting is from when I was working with Jade, and I had the privilege of, learning from her. That was something that was part of our process when I was working with her, as I wanted to get into business ownership. So she kind of also took me on that journey as well. But the behaviour of how some of these phone calls that the girls take, and the way that they'll talk to them, but they'll never speak to me that way, I think we need to change that in the industry and try to find a balance in there of being more supportive of our team when those concerns are raised. The team know that if that's what they're experiencing, to bring that to my attention. But I think that there's this fear of, if we just don't tolerate it, or it might be the owner says, no, I'm not doing those maintenance, and you just need to find a tenant to rent the property. Well, if it doesn't meet minimal housing standards, don't accept that property and don't take it on. So, don't take on any business that you know is only going to create bigger problems just to get the income. Think about what the bigger picture looks like for where you want to see the business go. And then don't tolerate those who are ongoing difficult matters within your business, which are draining your staff, because that one person single-handedly could change that person's perception of if they choose to stay in the industry or not. And what I have found over the time that I've had active agents is when I have chose to terminate those clients, they have just been blown away, like, excuse me, you don't want a business anymore. It's been quite a shock to them. So I know it's not a consistent thing that's happening in our industry, but I think the expectation of what is needed of us as property managers and of the property management business as a whole, we shouldn't be expected to tolerate that. And that has to come from leadership.
Yeah, it's a very topical, issue or discussion that we've been having in our business. And I think for so long, the professional service businesses that have always had the motto of client first or the customer's always first. And I think now, whether it's a generational change, whether it's education, whether it's just, that maybe doesn't need to be the case all the time, that, we've just realigned a couple of our company values. And, instead of this client first mentality, we're looking at people first. So that includes our colleagues, our employees, and of course our clients, like they're people. That's got to be the way moving forward, because as you said, you'll end up spending more time on that one client who thinks that they deserve more attention than the 10 other clients that sit in the wings that are super happy as well. And because property management, in my opinion, is such a reactive job, that if we can slightly change that scale to being a little bit more proactive, like shares and like superannuation funds and those types of asset classes, that we should be able to have a better experience for our clients in that respect as well. So I'm glad to hear that there's more people in the industry starting to think that way as well. And it takes, when there is so much, I guess, publicity, and you hear all the big stories of these big growth stories of businesses, and people pin up how many properties they've listed and all those types of things. And sometimes it is.
It's so true. And I was that BDM. I was all about the numbers. And that was important to me at that time when I was working for Prestige Properties. And it was really relevant at that time as well within the industry. Whereas now the things that excite me is in active agents, if we do get our zero rent arrears, the team know that they'll get a surprise. I'll turn up with flowers or a nice bottle of wine or something. They don't know what it's going to be, but there's this surprise gift that's coming because they've gone that extra mile, they've pushed their phone calls, they've made it happen to have the zero rent arrears. Our property management business runs Monday to Friday, but we do 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then on a Friday we do 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we finish at 1 o'clock today. And that gives the property managers that extra bit of time. They can do personal appointments in the afternoon. Our clients are aware of that. So if you were a client that come into the business and you were constantly expecting us to, communicate with you late on a Friday afternoon and that everything had to happen that way, I'd have to say, well, look, I'm actually really sorry, but it's not part of our growth model and what we're wanting to achieve here as a business at Active Agents, and being really okay with that. I think some business owners are too scared and just want to just say yes to everything, and then it ends up being more of a burden. Another example would be, I get asked all the time to do holiday rentals. I wouldn't have a weekend with my kids and family. I do complete permanent residential and that's it. And I know I can do it, and I'm not being pompous about it. Like, I know I could very easily have a successful holiday rental pool within the area, but I know what I invest into my time with what we do now, and I know what I'm prepared to give up, and I'm not prepared to give up my weekends with my kids at the age now. I can comfortably go to their sports. I'm not always at their training during the week, but I can be when they are doing comps or sports or different things on the weekend, and that's really important to me. And I think, and again, that's talking really openly and honestly with your clients. It might be a service-based area that you cover. We don't manage properties in Toogoom, which is a suburb that is 25 minutes, half an hour from the main. There's not really a centre yet in Hervey Bay. We're kind of getting one, but kind of where our office is. And people also find that bizarre, that we won't travel to there or we won't travel to Maryborough. I've got a staff member that's sitting on the road for an hour then. By the time half an hour they drive out there, half an hour they drive back, and that can be for one appointment. So we're staying hyper-local. There's enough stock in our area to continue to grow the way that we are. And I do have clients that have their property with us here, and they might have one out there, or they might have one in Maryborough they want us to manage. And I just say, look, unfortunately, we can't service that area. But typically, as we know, other agents say, yep, I'll take it on, and then they continue to expand that way, and they've just got all these prongs in all different directions. And that's why they're finding the pain points that they're finding, because the team can't keep up with the pace.
Thank you so much for opening up to us today. It's been really good to get some insights into your business, and it sounds like, again, you're always employees first, that type of thing. So kudos to you. We'd love to finish up today's interview with some rapid fire questions. Super quick ones. We always say this, but we typically ask an open-winded question, but I'd love to know, what is your favorite holiday destination?
One that I've been to, or one that I'd like to go to?
either or.
Okay. I love to go to the snow, so I'd probably say Queenstown is definitely one that I've really enjoyed. And I'd like to go, one of our team members actually, there's so many places I want to go to, but I'd like to go to Japan and ski there. Tali just went there, so I was in envy of her trip.
Fantastic. Final question for you today. If you were getting Italian, would you get pizza or pasta?
Uh,
Hopefully not gluten intolerant.
I'd probably go pizza
Pizza.
Nice.
Well, as Charles,
with pineapple. I'm a pineapple. I know there's like a bit of questioning around that. With pineapple.
as Charles said, thank you so much for taking the time today to go over your growth story, your insights into the industry, and yeah, more importantly, your business and being really open with that. So thank you so much, Tara.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.